Africa is the second largest continent and it is full of fascinating discoveries. In this video, we bring you what scientists have discovered in Africa that shocked the whole world. Number 1. Untouched rainforest hidden on top of a mountain. The Amazon rainforest may be the largest and the most popular, but the title of the untouched rainforest goes to Mount Liko in Mozambique. What remains to be discovered in the world in the 21st century? It appears unlikely that humans could find an untouched forest to study, somewhere that hasn't been bulldozed, burned, and exploited to the bone for precious minerals or virgin timber. But that's exactly what happened this spring when a Welsh researcher, Dr. Julian Baylis, led a 28-person team to the top of a mountain in Mozambique, including scientists specially selected for their various talents, as well as logistics experts, rock climbers, and, of course, filmmakers. The Mount Liko expedition started when Baylis, a conservation scientist and butterfly expert, noticed a small forest atop a mountain while using Google Earth. It wasn't the first time Baylis had discovered such a location. He'd been using Google Earth to explore high-altitude rainforests in Africa for about 15 years. Baylis shipped a drone to the base of the 410-foot or 125-meter sheer rock protuberance, which scientists call an Inselberg, to confirm there was a forest on top. This was no easy task because Mount Liko's surroundings are a patchwork of smallholder farms, tea and eucalyptus plantations, and woodlands. There are no paved roads or hostels to speak of, only rivers to cross, plants to hack away with machetes, and miles of dirt track to navigate. While locals were aware of Mount Liko and used the natural resources of the surrounding forests, its tall sheer walls made access nearly impossible, making the land on top likely untouched by humans. Scientists would later discover, however, that someone had been up there at least once. The explorers discovered partially buried ancient pots near the mainstream source. According to the locals, no one has ever climbed the mountain in memory or legend. So how did the pot makers scale the sheer cliff? Was the land surrounding Liko higher back then? Could the soil analysis assist in dating them? Number 2. Africa splitting in two to form a new ocean. East Africa is home to a number of visible geographical wonders that have drawn tourists to the region. Responsible for some of them is the East African Rift System, made up of the western and eastern continental rifts and stretches from the Afar region of Ethiopia down to Mozambique. It is an active continental rift that began millions of years ago and splits at a rate of 7 millimeters per year. The regular eruption of volcanoes along the rift, as well as new insights into continent breakup, add to the belief that the continent is splitting to form a new ocean. The Ale is one of the world's most active volcanoes, as well as one of only 8 and possibly the world's longest existing lava lakes. The Victoria microplate, one of the largest continental microplates, is one of the region's wonders, though it is not visible to tourists. The Victoria microplate is a rift branch that forms part of the East African Rift System, along with chains of deep lakes and volcanoes. According to a recent study, the Victoria microplate, which lies between the eastern and western branches of the rift, has been rotating counterclockwise with respect to the African plate, the major tectonic plate that makes up the majority of the African continent, for the last 2 years. This microplate was discovered to rotate in the opposite direction as all of the other microplates in the region. While this provides researchers with new insights into the East Africa Rift System's splitting process, the Y-shaped end of the rift at the Afar region is gaining attention as the likely location of an ocean if the splits continue. The Y-shaped junction is located near Djibouti and Eritrea and is associated with active volcanoes such as the Ale volcano. Researchers believe the region's volcanic activity indicates a rift-to-ridge transition. The Ale has been erupting continuously for more than 50 years, and it's expected that as it continues to erupt, a new narrow ocean basin with a mid-ocean ridge will form. Number 3. 300,000-year-old remains, the oldest ever discovered. The oldest known remains of Homo sapiens have been discovered in Morocco, rewriting the story of humanity's origins and suggesting that our species evolved in multiple locations across the African continent. Until now, our species' oldest known fossil dates back only 195,000 years. The Moroccan fossils, on the other hand, date back approximately 300,000 years. Surprisingly, they show that early Homo sapiens had faces similar to ours despite having fundamentally different brains. Until now, the oldest clearly Homo sapien fossils were discovered in Ethiopia. Researchers working at Herto discovered a skull estimated to be between 160 and 154,000 years old in 2003. In 1961, miners in Morocco discovered a few pieces of a skull at Jebel Ahoud. Later excavations uncovered a few more bones as well as flint blades. Researchers estimated the remains to be 40,000 years old using crude techniques. However, in the 1980s, a paleoanthropologist named Jean-Jacques Hublin examined one jawbone more closely. The teeth resembled those of living humans, but the shape was strangely primitive. Dr. Hublin and his colleagues began excavating rock layers on the desert hillside of Jebel Ahoud. They discovered a plethora of fossils, including skull bones from 5 people who died around the same time. Moreover, the researchers discovered flint blades in the same sedimentary layer as the skulls. The people of Jebel Ahoud most likely used them for a variety of purposes, including mounting some on wooden handles to make spears. Now, many of the flint blades appear to have been burnt. People at Jebel Ahoud most likely used fire to cook their food, heating discarded blades buried in the ground below. This historical happenstance enabled the flints to be used as historical clocks. Dr. Hublin and his colleagues calculated the time since the blades were burned using a technique known as thermoluminescence. The blades were estimated to be 300,000 years old. The skulls found in the same rock layer had to be the same age. Number 4. Goliath frogs. Frogs are everywhere, but most people are shocked the first time they come across Goliath frogs. As their name indicates, Goliath frogs are giant frogs found in Africa. The Goliath frog is the world's largest frog. It can reach a length of 12.5 inches or 32 centimeters and weigh up to 7.2 pounds or 3.3 kilograms. The Goliath frog is the size of several house cats, but it doesn't start out that big. The Goliath frog tadpole is the same size as a normal frog tadpole, but it just keeps growing. The adult looks similar to other frogs, but is much larger. Despite the fact that these massive frogs have been around longer than humans, we still have a lot to learn about them. For example, how long do they live? Is there a different kind of Goliath frog? Goliath frogs live in small populations in Western Africa's rainforest near the equator, near fast-flowing rivers and waterfalls. These massive amphibians, like most frogs, require access to water. Goliath frogs emerge at night and sit on river rocks in search of food. An adult Goliath frog consumes the same foods as other frogs, including insects, crustaceans, fish, and other amphibians. However, one scientist did discover a bat in the stomach of one Goliath frog. Tadpoles must fend for themselves and forage for themselves. Tadpoles of Goliath frogs are picky eaters that only eat a specific plant found near waterfalls and the banks of swift rivers. This could explain why this frog can only be found in one small area. Number 5. Oldest dinosaur in Africa, the Nekwebosaurus, found in South Africa. Nekwebosaurus is one of the earliest known ornithomimosaurs, a group of dinosaurs that evolved to resemble living ostriches with longer tails. The Nekwebosaurus resembles what scientists expect the earliest member of this group to look like, with some traits of later forms but overall resembling your typical small and fluffy theropod. It would have only been about 30 centimeters or 1 foot tall at the hip and about 0.9 meters long, though the original specimen was probably a juvenile and thus could have grown larger. It had long arms with 3 long fingers each, at least one of which was somewhat opposable. Nekwebosaurus would have also had feathers, both fluffy ones for warmth and longer ones on the arms that resembled wings, allowing Nekwebosaurus to display them. It had a shorter but not short neck than later members of the group and was squatter in general. Because of its small size, Nekwebosaurus would have been a skittish animal, though its ability to flee would have been limited. So Nekwebosaurus would have had to be on high alert, ready to flee at the slightest provocation. Its fluff would have kept it warm, which was important given its small stature, and it would have most likely stuck to the undergrowth in its densely forested environment searching for plants. It is unknown whether it lived in social groups, but it most likely cared for its young, protecting the eggs in the nest with its wings. Number 6. 40-kilometer wide Eye of the Sahara. The Blue Eye of the Sahara, also known as the Richat structure or the Guelb-er-Richat, is a geological formation in the Sahara Desert that looks like a massive bullseye. For centuries, only a few nomadic tribes in the area were aware of the formation. It was photographed for the first time by the Gemini astronauts in the 1960s, who used it as a landmark to track the progress of their landing sequences. Later, the Landsat satellite captured additional images and provided data on the formation's size, height, and extent. Geologists initially thought the Eye of the Sahara was an impact crater formed when a space object collided with the surface. Geologists believe that the Eye of the Sahara is a geologic dome. The formation contains rocks that are at least 100 million years old, with some dating back to before life on Earth existed. The Eye's formation began when the supercontinent Pangaea began to separate. The Atlantic Ocean began to flow into the region as Pangaea broke up. Tourists and geologists alike flock to the Eye of the Sahara to study the unique geological feature in person. However, because the Eye is in a sparsely populated region of the desert with little water or rainfall, it is not in danger from humans. Number 7. Unusual number of twins in Africa. Twins are cute and a handful for their parents. However, they are relatively rare, except in this city in West Africa. The city is Igbo-Ora in the Yoruba part of Nigeria, and it is known as the twin capital of the world. Twins are common among the Yoruba ethnic group. A British gynecologist discovered in the 1970s that around 50 sets of twins were born out of every 1,000 births in the southwest, making it one of the highest rates of twin births in the world. Twins are so common in Yoruba culture that they are given unique names. Depending on whether they were born first or second, they are known as Taiwo or Kehinde. However, even among Yorubas, Igbo-Ora is regarded as exceptional. There were 9 sets of twins among the nearly 100 secondary school students at a school visited by a reporter. So why are there so many twins in this city? Some attribute it to the local diet, which includes okra leaf. The leaves are used to make a popular Igbo-Ora stew. Others have mentioned the popularity of amala, a traditional dish made of yams and cassava flour. According to one theory, yams stimulate the production of gonadotropins, a chemical agent that stimulates egg production. Number 8. Two-headed snake found in South Africa. Snakes are scary enough for most people, but what if you chanced upon a snake with 2 heads? One man found just that in the wild in South Africa and decided to share the shocking footage with the rest of the world. Snake rescuer Nick Evans posted photos of the 2-headed southern brown egg-eater on Facebook. Evans stated in the caption that he came across the rare reptile when he was asked to collect the snake from a man who had discovered the slithering animal in his garden. The man, who lives in a town north of Durban, didn't want the strange creature to be hurt, so he put it in a bottle and asked Evans to take it away. Such a kind soul. Evans described it as a juvenile about a foot long in the caption. It was fascinating to watch how it moved. Sometimes their heads would try to go in opposite directions, and other times they would rest on top of the other. That appeared to be the most efficient method of movement. Animals that are born with 2 or more heads have a condition called polycephaly, which is more common in reptiles than in mammals. It rarely survives for long, depending on how far the 2 heads are separated. Number 9. Rainbow in the soil. Most people have seen a rainbow, however they would have had to raise their eyes to the sky to sight one, but there is a place in Africa where a rainbow is at your feet. The 7-colored Earth of Chamarel is a natural phenomenon and a popular tourist attraction in Mauritius. The sand dunes area magically contains sand of 7 distinct colors, approximately red, brown, violet, green, blue, purple, and yellow. What's more intriguing is that if you mix the colored earth together, they eventually separate into distinct layers, with each dot of sand rejoining its color cast. Rains have carved beautiful patterns into the hillside since the earth was first exposed, creating the effect of earthen meringue. You'll notice shadows on the hills at first, creating the illusion of different colors, but you'll quickly realize that the colors are real and the shadows are an illusion. The best time to see the colored earths is at sunrise. These rolling dunes of a multicolored lunar-like landscape continue to captivate geologists. Despite torrential downpours and adverse climatic conditions, the colors red, brown, violet, green, blue, purple, and yellow never erode. Since the 1960s, the colored earth of Chamarel has been one of Mauritius' most popular tourist attractions. The dunes are now surrounded by a wooden fence, and visitors are not permitted to climb them, though they can view the scenery from observation outposts placed along the fence. Shops in the area sell small test tubes filled with various colored soils. Number 10. The mysterious fairy circles of the Namib Desert. One of Namib's many wonders is a geomorphic phenomenon known as fairy circles, which is one of its most intriguing features and greatest mysteries. These barren patches of sand encircled by a single species of grass known as fairy rings are found throughout the Namib Desert and have confounded experts for decades. The rings are best seen from above, where the circle's matrix spreads out endlessly across the desert sands. Fairy rings can be found in both the Namib's flat gravel plains and the desert dunes, and they retain their nearly perfectly circular shape in both environments. In central Namib, the circles are 1.5 to 6 meters in diameter, while in northwestern Namibia, they are roughly 4 times as large and can reach up to 25 meters in width. While experts are baffled by the origins of these fairy formations, Namibians have long been aware of them. The Himba people of the area believe they are caused by spirits and the footprint of their god Makuru. Mathematicians have even attempted to create models to see if the rings fit a recognizable pattern in order to understand their origin. But some locals believe these mysterious circles are caused by UFOs or fairies dancing at night. Number 11. Mysterious blue stone of pure oxygen found in Sierra Leone. Angelo Pettoni, an Italian geologist, was visiting Sierra Leone to determine whether a certain region of the country, known as Kono, was indeed a rich deposit of diamonds that could be exploited. Pettoni came across an incredible discovery while studying the region that had been left out in the cold for some reason. A local chief showed Pettoni one of the most mysterious stones Pettoni had ever seen in his career. It was a blue stone with mysterious white lines on its surface. Where did these stones come from? Pettoni was told an ancient legend by the tribal chief that explained why the area was so rich in diamonds. God discovered that a revolt was brewing among his angels and expelled them to earth, where they became statues. But they didn't arrive alone. Legend has it that a large portion of the sky and stars fell with the angels to earth. Now, to Pettoni's surprise, tests showed that the stone was not turquoise and it wasn't even officially catalogued. The blue stone he had discovered does not correspond to any known mineral. Oxygen made up 77.17% of the stone, according to analysis. Carbon made up 11.58%, silicon 6.39%, calcium 3.31%, and other elements make up the remaining percentages. Number 12. Lucy skeleton found in Ethiopia. Lucy is the nickname given to one of the most well-known human ancestor fossils. But what makes Lucy special? Lucy's discovery could be described as a funny bone story. Scientists discovered the elbow region of Lucy's ulna. When you bump the ulnar nerve in your elbow, it presses against your humerus and gives you that tingly, funny bone feeling. Lucy's broken ulna protruded from the sediments, and the group of scientists could tell by its shape and size that it belonged to a primate and could even be the fossilized remains of a hominin. They scanned the ground carefully and were pleasantly surprised to find many more fossilized bone fragments, including parts of a cranium, mandible, ribs, pelvis, thighs, feet, and more. But how did they even know Lucy was female? Because of Lucy's small size, the team assumed she was a female almost immediately. They were familiar with other researchers' discoveries of fossil hominins in other parts of Africa decades before the Lucy discovery. Like many living primates, hominins were sexually dimorphic, with males being larger than females. Thus, the relatively small bones recovered were those of a female. Lucy's height was later estimated based on the length of her femur, despite the fact that the end of her femur had been crushed prior to complete fossilization. They estimated Lucy's height to be between 104 and 106 centimeters tall, using mathematical formulas that relate femur length to stature. Males of Lucy's species were most likely around 150 centimeters tall. Later, a team of scientists used 3D computer-based technology to virtually reconstruct Lucy's damaged femur and discovered that it was probably only a few millimeters shorter than previously thought. Number 13. Gedi Ruins, the Machu Picchu of Kenya. They say jinns protect these ancient ruins, guardian spirits flitting between the cracked and crumbling grey stone walls among the muscular baobabs and dangling, strangling fig trees, whirling around empty and overgrown tombs. Welcome to Getty Ruins, Africa's own Machu Picchu. It was a city once advanced beyond its years, but is now reduced to rubble and abandoned to the hungry forest. The lost city of Getty, tucked away in the dense elephant-roamed Arabuko-Sokoke Forest Reserve not far from the small seaside town of Watamu, was only properly rediscovered by outsiders in the 20th century. Getty, which spans approximately 30 hectares or 75 acres, is thought to date from the 12th century. The city appears to have been rebuilt twice, with new city walls erected in the 15th century when the settlement was at its peak. However, it was abandoned in the 17th century for unknown reasons. There are no contemporary written records in Portuguese, Arabic, or Swahili. The city's birth, boom, and bust remain a mystery. The web is extensive and clearly sophisticated. It was built of coral stones, lime, and sand, with neat streets laid out at right angles within two concentric walls. The wealthy lived within the inner wall. The outer wall surrounded farms, plantations, and middle-class mud and wattle houses, and the peasants had to make do with the land beyond. There are the ruins of a large mosque and exquisite pillar tombs where imams were buried, as well as a palace where the king held court. Windowless and doorless chambers are thought to be vault-like treasure stores, only accessible through secret hatches in the roofs. Getty also had drainage gutters, water tanks, and bathrooms with flushable toilets, which were extremely advanced for the Middle Ages. But exactly what happened to Getty, I guess we'll never know. Number 14. Who was buried in the mysterious tomb at KV55 in Egypt? A mysterious tomb was discovered in Egypt in 1907. The tomb, known as KV55, contained a variety of artifacts as well as a single body. However, the identification of the body has been made very difficult by the fact that the artifacts appear to belong to several different people. It has been speculated that the tomb was built in a hurry and that the person buried there had previously been laid to rest somewhere else. With numerous possibilities for the mummy's identity, ranging from Queen Tiye Akhenaten's mother to King Smenkhkare, researchers who set out to identify the mummy faced a perplexing challenge. The K55 tomb is small and simple. The entrance consists of 20 steps. The entrance and stairs were covered in rubble at the time of the discovery. The tomb is reached via a sloping corridor that leads to a single chamber and a small niche. The tomb contained 4 canopic jars, a gilded wooden shrine, box remains, seal impressions, a vase stand, pieces of furniture, a silver goose head, 2 clay bricks, and a single coffin. The coffin had been desecrated, with parts of the face missing. Researchers concluded that the individual buried within the tomb was male after further examination and testing of the remains. Even after it was determined that the remains belonged to a man, questions remained about who he was and how old he was when he died. Number 15. Lake Natron in Tanzania, making stones out of animals. What does it take to transform an animal into a stone? In Tanzania, you simply toss it into Lake Natron. But why is this lake so toxic and dangerous to animals? Lake Natron in northern Tanzania is a salt lake, which means the water flows in but does not flow out, leaving only evaporation as the way to escape. Water evaporates over time, leaving behind high concentrations of salt and other minerals, as seen at the Dead Sea and Utah's Great Salt Lake. Lake Natron, however, is extremely alkaline due to high levels of the chemical natron, a mixture of sodium carbonate and baking soda in the water. The pH of the water has been measured to be as high as 10.5, nearly as high as ammonia. Migrating birds, on the other hand, frequently crash into the lake's surface. Scientists believe the highly reflective, chemically dense waters act like a glass door, tricking birds into thinking they're flying through empty space. A helicopter pilot tragically fell victim to the same illusion not long ago, and his crashed aircraft was rapidly corroded by the lake's waters. During the dry season, when the water recedes, the birds' desiccated, chemically preserved carcasses wash up along the coastline. Let's hear which of these discoveries you like most in the comments section below.